the Kashmir debate is raging like never before. In 24 hours, two opposition leaders have defended autonomy for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. But have they insulted the martyrdom of Kashmir's braves? Here's a report.
When they ask for Azadi, most people, I'm not saying all, most people, the overwhelming majority, want autonomy. Therefore, I think we should seriously examine that question and consider on what areas we can give autonomy to Jammu and Kashmir.
आप हमारा मुकाबला बाकी रियासतों के साथ कर नहीं सकते हो। जब इराक हो, मरकज की जिम्मेदारी तीन चीजों पे थी: करेंसी, डिफेंस और फॉरेन अफेयर्स। ये आईन में दर्ज है। और जब हम कहते हैं कि इसको दोबारा बहाल किया जाए, आप कहते हैं हम एंटी नेशनल हैं।
Are they really concerned about fixing Kashmir, or is this plain and simple political opportunism? Two statements, 24 hours apart, have thrown open the Kashmir debate like never before. A 70-year-old dispute shrouded in politics. Amid the raging controversy over Congress leader P. Chidambaram's autonomy remarks on Jammu and Kashmir, in jumps the state's opposition, National Conference. Omar Abdullah revived his demand for restoration of autonomy to Jammu and Kashmir. But have they spared a thought for Kashmir's braves, whose lives were cruelly cut short by those who are holding Kashmir to ransom? "22-year-old Army officer Lieutenant Umar Fayaz, who hailed from Kulgam in Kashmir, was on leave to attend a wedding in the family. He was kidnapped from his house and murdered by terrorists in May. His bullet-riddled body was found the next day. 32-year-old Feroz Dar, a fearless Kashmiri cop, was among 6 policemen who were killed in a terror attack in Anantnag in Kashmir in June this year. The terrorists disfigured the faces of Feroz Dar and his team by spraying bullets at them. Last month, BSF constable Ramesh Pare was dragged out of his house in Bandipur and shot dead by terrorists. Lieutenant Umar Fayaz, Feroz Dar and Ramesh Pare are just 3 among countless bravehearts who have been systematically targeted by terrorists in Kashmir. But instead of saluting their sacrifice, politicians like Chidambaram and Omar Abdullah appear to be stoking the political fire. And it led to the Prime Minister coming out all guns blazing against them.
अब अचानक जो कल तक सत्ता में बैठे थे, वो आज अचानक यू टर्न ले ले और बेशर्मी के साथ बयान करे। कश्मीर की आजादी के साथ अपना स्वर मिला दे।
The government's newest hope for Kashmir, interlocutor Dineshwar Sharma, says he's ready to speak to all stakeholders in Kashmir, including the Hurriyat, as long as it means that some resolution will be arrived at.
Yeah, definitely, as he has said, that I should talk to them, and embracing Kashmiris is the objective of this government.
A solution to the Kashmir Conundrum has eluded successive governments in India. But the sacrifice of the brave men and women of Kashmir cannot go in vain because of political opportunism. Bureau Report, WION.
Hours after Prime Minister Modi's stinging attack, Chidambaram came out with a clarification. He said, and I quote, "It is obvious the PM has not read the whole answer to the question put to me on Jammu and Kashmir. Those who criticize must read the whole answer and tell me which word in the answer was wrong. The PM is imagining a ghost and attacking it. Neither the Congress nor I criticized the surgical strikes. We pointed out that these were cross-border actions and such actions had been done in the past too, as admitted by the Army Chief." We are joined by Rahul Jalali, senior journalist on Kashmir. He's a Kashmir expert in the studio. Also joined by Shaina NC, BJP spokesperson from Mumbai, and Nasir Hussain, Congress spokesperson from Bangalore. I'll go first to Mr. Jalali. A lot of politics appears to be taking place in Kashmir, and there have been times when we have talked about a political vacuum in the state. How do you see this dichotomy?
Well, I think to begin with, I think let's focus on what Mr. Chidambaram has said. Apart from the politics which you talk about, which has taken place, what has this statement done?
Yeah.
He has said that Kashmiris, when they speak about Azadi, what they mean is autonomy. I think for a former Home Minister to say this, at a time when an interlocutor has been appointed by the centre, especially to start or restart the dialogue process with every sort of opinion in Kashmir. I think for Mr. Chidambaram to make this public announcement at such a time was completely unfortunate and uncalled for. Because he understands, or rather he claims he understands Kashmir, he understands the nuances of interlocution, because after all, he is the person who appointed a committee of interlocutors to begin with. And he knows that Mr. Sharma, the interlocutor appointed by the centre, has not even been to Kashmir, as he's just about to begin his work.
Right.
So he's undermining the entire dialogue process. So for someone who belongs to the Congress party, ends up undermining the dialogue process, he is also either attacking his own party, which he's ended up doing in any case, whether intentionally or unintentionally. But for a former Home Minister, he could have privately made the same suggestion to people, to the current Home Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, if he had a suggestion to offer, or maybe to the interlocutor. Not doing that, I don't understand why he said this. So I think it's an extremely irresponsible thing to say.
But Mr. Jalali, this is not the first time that autonomy has been talked about in Kashmir's context. What makes this remark so untenable to particularly the BJP and the central government?
Well, I think autonomy, I mean, look, today what the reaction is, I mean, tomorrow is more to do with Gujarat elections rather than Kashmir politics or the entire question of autonomy, the grant of it or not. Because if you remember, even BJP has compromised on Article 370 the day they signed an agreement with Mehbooba Mufti, or rather with PDP before Mehbooba became Chief Minister, to come in the government in Jammu and Kashmir. That was over 2 years ago. They ignored the question of Article 370. That was kept on the back burner. So that I don't think, but this entire debate around autonomy is given the election. Secondly, if you look at autonomy, when did the question of autonomy first come about? It was around 97 when Jammu-Kashmir Assembly, which had a majority, a brute majority of National Conference, passed a resolution on autonomy. They brought out a special report, and a resolution was passed by the Assembly, unanimous resolution, unanimously passed by the Assembly, asking the centre to grant further autonomy to Jammu-Kashmir. They sent this resolution to Delhi, and in Delhi, Mr. Omar Abdullah was the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs.
Right.
He was part of the then BJP government, which was led by Vajpayee.
Absolutely.
What happened to that resolution? That was completely ignored by the centre. What did National Conference do? Nothing. So I think autonomy has just become a slogan, and which is raised from time to time. You see, since then so many years have passed, from 97. National Conference, when Chidambaram gives them an opening, today talks about autonomy again. So, but what were they doing for all these years if they really were interested in that? So I think no one is interested in autonomy. Also look at what's happened to Article 370. It's no longer a question of debate. So I don't think that's an issue. And also, give the interlocutor a chance. Everyone wants dialogue. So I'm talking to all political parties. Please support him in his bid to restart the dialogue process in Kashmir. Kashmir wants peace. they will respond to it.
Also, sir, isn't autonomy a better word than azadi in that sense? I mean, people have been talking about getting azadi in Kashmir. If somebody says that, they probably only mean autonomy when they talk about azadi. What's the big deal?
Well, I think Kashmir already has a certain autonomy given to it. Look, as long as Article 370 is there, autonomy is guaranteed to Kashmir. It is there on paper at least,
right.
Under law at least. The question is not giving autonomy to Kashmir. That it already has. The question is the laws which have been passed, central laws, since 1953. So what
right.
laws do you take back and what laws do you keep? That's what the debate is on.
Right. Let's also,
it's not on autonomy. Let's not make that mistake.
Right. Let's also bring in Shaina NC into the discussion. Shaina, isn't it much ado about nothing?
Much ado about nothing? This is nothing but politics of opportunism. And that too over Kashmir. Please do understand, Kashmir is a non-negotiable. It is an integral part of India and will continue to be so. If Mr. Chidambaram has his own agenda and his own policy, let him first be elected, let the party, Congress party, come to power and then make such preposterous suggestions. Do understand the Article 370 grants a special status to Jammu and Kashmir. But you need to understand that this is a fight against terror. It is for the people of Kashmir. And when you have somebody like Mr. Chidambaram making this statement, I wonder if he even values what our brave soldiers have done. How many of them have laid their lives to fight terrorism? You have 165 terrorists that have been finished off. And if opponents are playing this kind of politics on the lives of martyrs who have fought valiantly, I think that the opposition is insulting them. This is a sacrifice, and a sacrifice where a solution can only happen through dialogue. Please do understand, Mr. Sharma has not just the expertise but also the intelligence background. He has the experience, and we believe that in the days to come, whether you are interacting with the youth or the separatists, the only solution is that Kashmir continues to be an integral part of India. So as I said, the two things which are totally non-negotiable, one is terrorism and the second is this so-called suggestion of Mr. Chidambaram, where he suggests something which he cannot even implement if he comes to power, leave alone being in the opposition. And this is opportunism, it is petty politics, and we are disrespecting the lives of the martyrs who have lost their lives only fighting for this country in this fight for terror.
Also,
against terror.
Your points are well taken, Shaina, but just a few months back, 3 to 4 months back, the central government itself was telling the country's apex court in an ongoing case that it would not talk to anybody, any separatist who was talking about Azadi in the valley. Then we had Mr. Ram Madhav's comments.
But here you have the opposition talking about Azadi.
No,
this is the opposition who is trying to play its petty politics.
No, my question is
suggesting
no, your point is taken, but my question is that a few months back, it was a very clearly stated position by the central government that we will not talk to anybody who talks of Azadi. Then we had Mr. Ram Madhav make some comments, and then finally Prime Minister himself during his Independence Day speech talked about embracing the Kashmiris. What has led to this this change? What has led to this evolution in this entire strategy while dealing with Kashmir?
First and foremost, this is not a strategy. This is a step in the right direction. It is not as if the previous government did not have interloculators as well. This is not about an individual. This is about a dialogue with not just the separatists. It is more importantly with the youth of Kashmir, with the rickshawalas, with the people working on jobs as, tourism. Look at the kind of problems we have faced in the recent past. You have a befitting answer given by the Indian government to terrorists, terrorism and terror insulation. You have 165 terrorists that have been killed, and those martyrs who gave their life for our country Are we going to give them this kind of a suggestion? And the opposition playing politics and suggesting Azadi, and then you have Omar Abdullah and all joining this bandwagon. I think the Indian government has always looked for solution, and the opposition is always looking for confusion. So if I want to really sum it up, I just want to say that if you want a healthy, happy dialogue, that's one thing. If the dialogue is not positive, that is another. But strategy and national security is not something which is disclosed on television. It is for the Home Ministry in accordance with our Honorable Prime Minister. And do believe me when I say that the people of India have given a mandate to our government, because they know we will not compromise on security, we will not compromise on terror. And on that accord, if they have voted us in, you jolly well believe that we are here to serve public and not to serve the one-day fancies of some defunct leader who wants to only gain some traction through all these sensational comments to deflect from his own corruption.
Right. I'll also at this point like to bring in Mr. Nasir Hussain, the Congress spokesperson. He's joining us from Bangalore. Mr. Hussain, clearly Mr. Chidambaram appears to have stirred a hornet's nest with his comments. How do you react to this?
See, I think the position of Indian National Congress is very, very clear that Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh have been an integral part of Indian Union, are integral part, and unquestionably in the future also they will be integral part of the Indian Union. There is no debate on that, there can be no dialogue on that, there cannot be any negotiation on that. So I think this is very, very clear on the point. And point number two is, Mr. Chidambaram, only in his answer to a particular question, has tried to define what autonomy, what Azadi means to a certain section of people, and he has also made it very clear it is not to all the people of Kashmir. That is what he has said, I think. Now BJP, and especially the Prime Minister who made this remark in Bangalore, probably has not exactly read what Mr. Chidambaram has said. So let me not dwell into that. But let me answer a few things which the BJP spokesperson is trying to raise here. See, this entire crisis in Jammu and Kashmir should be viewed and debated in a larger context. It is not about one word, it is not about one sentence, what one person has meant or what he has tried to explain. What is more important is what has happened in the last 3.5 years since the NDA government has taken over the center and since the NDA government has taken over in Jammu and Kashmir. Has normalcy been restored, or has there been peace all this time? There are no colleges, no classes, no business, no tourism, nothing happening in Jammu and Kashmir, except for violence, except for unrest. I think this is one of the lengthiest unrest in Jammu and Kashmir in the history of independent India. So it is not the opposition which is confused on Jammu and Kashmir. It is the government of India which is completely confused on our policy on Jammu and Kashmir and also on our policy on Pakistan. The rise of terrorist activities, the loss of lives of civilians, the loss of lives of our Jawans, and a complete flip-flop in our policy towards Jammu and Kashmir and in our policies towards Pakistan. I think Pakistan is very thankful to the Modi-led government.
I take your point, Mr. Hussain. I think China wants to come in at this point. Your point is well taken, Mr. Hussain.
Pakistan is getting the kind of investment in POK by China, by Russia, and by America, by American. Here,
please,
that is what you have done. That is what China, you people have done. You are given
it was
glorifying Afzal Guru by Mufti.
We are not glorifying. You are making such a stupid suggestion.
To the family of
you are talking about handing over Kashmir on a platter and saying, please, terrorists take it, separatists take it. Here it is. This is our contribution to you. We will not allow you to touch this country.
Your point is well taken. Please let China respond to it.
You can do so when you come to power.
China, please respond.
1 minute. This is the most pardon my using this language, but it's the most stupid suggestion. It's like saying that we want to give Kashmir to the separatists and the terrorists on a platter. This is our contribution to you. Here is Azadi for you. I mean, this is a non-negotiable. Our Prime Minister has the political will. Not an inch of this country is going to be given, or even given the opportunity to be given. Do understand, we are here on a mandate. The people of this country have elected us and elected the Prime Minister purely on his integrity and vision for Jammu and Kashmir and the rest of India. You choose to have one of your leaders wanting to be in the limelight by making stupid suggestions and sacrificing,
I think India has never
not
seen
even
such
valuing the sacrifice of our armed forces. Do understand, what was the surgical strike? Was it not a befitting answer? Do not forget Sushma Swaraj at the United Nations. Do not forget what the Prime Minister did.
There are so many surgical strikes in the past.
Not
there were so many surgical
but also in Kashmir. And if those people
China
who sit
doesn't
on
even know how many surgical strikes have happened in the past.
No, I don't. You seem to know everything. I want to ask you a fundamental question. You do not have the mandate. You do not have a concrete suggestion, and you are dissuading dialogue. What is the solution in your eyes? To just say we give it up and take it terrorists, take it separatists. This is us giving it to you. This is not a weak India, Mr. Hussain. This is not the India of the Congress regime. This is the India which is led by a Prime Minister who has the political will and the conviction to take situations head on, to fight head on, and do not dismiss the contribution of our armed forces. It's high time you take cognizance of what they've done for every Indian and every Indian citizen. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir are Indian citizens and will continue to be so. The day you're elected to power, come up with your invaluable suggestions.
Your points are well taken, China. And also, Mr. Hussain, I would go to Mr. Jalali once again. This point Mr. Hussain was trying to make, that ever since this government came to power, the past 3.5 years, we've seen a deteriorating of the situation, violence and bloodshed and everything. Well, we had 10 years of the UPA rule before that. It was not as if Kashmir was all fine then. We had phases and prolonged phases where there were periods of considerable disturbance, stone pelting, terrorism, everything. At the end of the day, it is not as if Kashmir was any better when Congress was in power, or it's any better when the BJP is in power. How do you see this entire situation playing out, sir?
Well, I'm not going to go into this debate of 3 years versus 60 years because it's irrelevant. I mean, Kashmir has been it's been a problem since 1990, and things get better, then they become worse. I mean, even during Congress regime, let's not forget 2010, when over 116 people of Kashmiri youth were killed and the stone pelting took place, which is a result of why those 3 interlocutors were appointed by Mr. P. Chidambaram to solve Kashmir. Let's not get into that debate. I think what is important for me is the appointment of the interlocutor. This shows that the centre right now is serious about a dialogue process in Kashmir. It is pursuing a path which the Prime Minister had promised from the ramparts of Red Fort in his Independence Day speech, when he talked about embracing the people of Kashmir. So he spelled out a new policy, which is what Kashmir wants, which is also, incidentally, which Congress had asked for. They've been asking for a dialogue process for a long time. So here is a dialogue process started by a person who understands Kashmir.
Mr.
Look,
Jalali. Your point,
Mr. Bindeshwar Sharma knows Kashmir.
No, absolutely. Very valid points, but we are unfortunately out of time.
But I think this is where Mr. Chidambaram is undercutting Mr. Sharma's effort. And that's the unfortunate part.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Mr. Rahul Jalali, Shaina NC and Mr. Nasir Hussain from the Congress for joining us on this show. Stay tuned for more news and updates on the other side. Thanks for watching.